Good morning and a warm welcome. It's almost the end of the year and Christmas is upon us. Christmas constitutes such a large part of our traditions, particularly in the Western world, and I thought it would be interesting to trace some of the origins of these traditions. So we might ask, what is Christmas? Christmas is the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. Jesus' birthday was not celebrated in the early church as we know today, but it is something that evolved over time, and I will try and trace some of these developments. There are at least three things we need to know about a birthday: the place of birth, the date or year of birth, and the month and the day. Now we know the place where Jesus was born because that is stated in the Bible. It is in Bethlehem, which is 10 kilometers south of Jerusalem. Bethlehem is situated in Palestine and is behind the separation wall, which makes it not quite as easy to reach as a visitor as it was when I first visited the site. The Church of the Nativity was built over the grotto where he was believed to have been born. In the grotto below the church is a 14-pointed star that marks the spot where the manger stood. This grotto is the oldest site of continuous Christian worship. The original church was commissioned by Emperor Constantine after his mother Helena's visit to the holy sites in Palestine, built between the years 330 and 333 AD. A Persian army invaded Palestine in the year 614. It destroyed all the churches in the area, but spared this one. This 14-pointed silver star was placed there in the year 1717. The star was stolen by Greek monks in the year 1847. This was one of the causes that sparked the Crimean War between Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire against Russia over the control of holy sites in Palestine. The star was replaced by the Ottoman Sultan, including the current Latin inscription. Various other conflicts have occurred in this area, but the church was always spared. Now, the next question is the date of birth of Christ. There is no date in the Gospels or in any historical records, but there are a few clues that we can follow. The Bible states in Matthew 2 and Luke 1 that Herod was the king during Jesus' ministry. Now we know from historical records that Herod was the king of Judea from the years 37 to 4 BC, which means Christ must have been born at least by the year 4 BC. In Luke 3, it states that John the Baptist ministered during the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar. That can be traced back to the year 28 AD. Also in Luke 3, it states that Jesus started his ministry at the age of 30. Thus, if we backdate this from the time of John the Baptist, we arrive at around 2 BC. The Bible tells us about three wise men, or magi, who followed a star to visit the site of a newborn king. On their way, they visited King Herod. Herod asked them to inform him about this newborn king, but they returned along another way. Herod thereafter ordered the killing of all Jewish children between the ages of 0 and 2. Scholars therefore believe that the Magi may have arrived 2 years after the birth, which pushes the date back to 6 BC. One other clue that scholars have researched is the star that the wise men are believed to have followed. Modern astronomical software, as well as historical records, especially those from ancient China and Babylon, have been studied to try and determine the appearance of the Star of Bethlehem. The most widely studied potential explanations are so-called planetary conjunctions, where some of the planets appear together in the sky. For instance, a conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn, another between Jupiter and Venus, and finally between Jupiter and the Moon, the so-called moon occultation. Furthermore, the appearance of novae or supernovae have also been explored, as well as the appearance of comets. There is, however, no single natural explanation that fits the details of the biblical narrative. The conclusion is, therefore, that Christ was born somewhere between the years 6 and 2 BC, but most likely between 6 and 4 BC. Although we refer to the dates of historical events as occurring on certain years BC or AD, why then was Christ not born in the year 1 AD? The reason is that there was no dating system at the time. As we saw in Luke 3, which refers to John the Baptist as ministering during the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, dates were referenced to the rule of Roman emperors and proconsuls. However, the Emperor Diocletian, who was responsible for the last major persecution of the Christians during what is known as the era of martyrs, introduced the so-called Anno Diocletiani system, a dating system which he introduced in the year 284 AD. Anno 1 was the first day of his rule. Now then came along a person by the name of Dionysius Exiguus. He was a Scythian monk who lived in the years 470 to 544 AD. He lived in Rome from 500 AD onwards. He translated 401 church canons and documents into Latin and was considered the most learned abbot of Rome at the time. He devised the Anno Domini system, or the Year of Our Lord system, in the year 525 AD, which we use today. Now, Easter tables were astronomical calculation charts that were used to determine when Easter should be celebrated, and was based on the 19-year metatonic cycle of the sun and the moon. Easter is celebrated on the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon, which is the first full moon after the 21st March equinox, and was proclaimed at the Council of Nicaea in the year 325 AD. Dionysius, however, did not wish to use the Diocletiani dating system because Diocletian was a very cruel emperor. He then replaced that system with a so-called Anno Domini system in his Easter tables. He declared in that year that he was working that it is 525 years since the birth of Christ, thus the year 525 AD. His exact logic and his calculations, however, are not recorded. All other dates prior to that time had to be backdated and calculated backwards from that year. It took a while for the new Anno Domini system to be universally accepted. The Venerable Bede used it in his influential work, but it was particularly popularized when Emperor Charlemagne adopted it for use throughout the Carolingian Empire. Interesting, however, the year 0, in other words 0 BC or 0 AD, is not used in that system. Thus, the next question, on which day and in which month was Jesus born? Again, there is no record in the Bible of the exact day of his birth. In the year 336 AD, during the reign of Emperor Constantine, the 25th of December was declared as the birth date of Jesus. The main reason for this was an attempt to Christianize the popular pagan feast of Saturnalia, when gifts were exchanged. It also aligns with the winter solstice and the pagan Roman festival of Sol Invictus, which means the unconquered sun. In the Eastern Orthodox, the Coptic and Ethiopian churches, Christmas is celebrated on the 7th of January, which corresponds to the 25th of December in the Julian calendar. We have now dealt with the complicated issues around the dates and the date of birth. Let's look at some of the other traditions around Christmas. First of all, we might ask, what are the traditions that relate to Saint Mary, the mother of Jesus? However, there's such a vast body of traditions that honor her, like churches that have been built in her name, devotions and church services, icons, illustrations, so many famous paintings, many musical compositions, chants, hymns, choral works, etc. It's just too much to go into in this presentation. What I will, however, refer to is that the oldest image of Saint Mary can be found in the Dura Europa Church in Syria and dates back to the 2nd century. This church, situated on the banks of the Euphrates River, has been identified as the earliest Christian house church. The oldest image of the Madonna and Child can be found in the Catacombs of Priscilla, located underneath Rome's Via Salaria, and dates to the 3rd century. Let us consider some of the traditions related to the Magi or wise men. They are only mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew in the Bible and were called Magos or wise men in the original Greek text of the Bible. The Magi were historically a hereditary class of Zoroastrian priests from Persia, steeped in astronomy and astrology. They probably arrived 2 years after the birth of Christ, as I stated earlier. Their traditional names are Balthazar, Caspar, and Melchior. The names first appeared in a lost Greek manuscript, probably composed in Alexandria around the year 500 AD. There are many theories on the origin of these names. All I will mention here is that the names also appear in a compendium compiled by an abbess, Herod of Landsberg in Alsace, in the 12th century. Here is an image of the compendium that she wrote, called the Hortus Delicarum, which means the Garden of Delights. It's a vast encyclopedia of 12th century knowledge, with theological and philosophical themes ranging from creation to the end times, featuring poems, music, and illustrations. A traveler to Samarkand in the year 1243 saw images of the three kings in churches. These traditions therefore stretch further into the eastern part of Asia. Prester John, this mythical Christian Oriental king, is reputed to be a descendant of one of the Magi. In the Armenian tradition, Balthazar was from Arabia, Caspar from India, and Melchior from Persia. In Ethiopia, Melchior is named Bazen, who in their tradition was the person who brought the gift of gold to Jesus at the birth, in the fulfillment of Psalm 72, which states, "The kings of Sheba will present him gifts, may gold from Sheba be given him." Let us now consider some of the earliest commemorations of the birth of Christ. The birth of Jesus was not celebrated in the early church, but only commemorated in church services. The earliest commemoration was a midnight vigil in Bethlehem, followed by a torchlight procession to Jerusalem. This was first recorded in the year 381 AD. As part of the celebration of the birth of Christ, Pope Sixtus III introduced a midnight mass in the year 440 AD at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome. He built a small chapel within the main basilica that was a replica of the Grotto of Bethlehem and included a manger. This Christ Mass is the origin of Christmas that we celebrate today. The first recorded use of the word Christmas in Old English was Christus Massa or Christus Messe in the year 1038. Current celebrations in Bethlehem start early, culminating in the Midnight Mass, which is broadcast internationally. There are 3 ceremonies held in Bethlehem: the Catholic Mass on the 25th of December, the Orthodox celebrations on the 7th of January, and the Armenian Mass on the 6th of January. Xmas is not a random abbreviation of Christmas. It is actually derived from the Greek name of Christ, which is Christos, which starts with an X in Greek, and also reflects the Chi Rho symbol, which was used for Christ in the early church. Another tradition related to dates around Christmas is Advent. The origin is uncertain, but already existed at the time of the Church Council of Tours in 567 AD. It begins on the 4th Sunday before Christmas and is commemorated in church services every Sunday leading up to Christmas. The word is derived from the Latin Adventus, which is a time of waiting and preparation. Traditionally, it was a period of fasting or eating only certain foods in preparation for the celebration of Christmas. Current celebrations include Advent calendars, wreaths and Advent candles, the hanging of the greens ceremony, and erecting a Christmas tree. Another set of dates related to Christmas are the 12 days of Christmas, also known as Christmastide. The 12 days were proclaimed at the Church Council of Tours in 567 AD. The 12 days were proclaimed as part of the official church calendar rather than a period of festivity or revelry. It runs from Christmas Day, which is day 1, to the 5th of January, or from the 7th to the 18th of January in the Julian calendar. The second day, on the 26th of December, is the Feast of St. Stephen, or Boxing Day. This does not refer to physical boxing, but to a tradition that arose in the Middle Ages with the opening of church alms in boxes for distribution to the poor. In Victorian England, it became a day for employees to give their servants who had worked on Christmas Day a Christmas box of gifts. This officially became a public holiday in Britain in 1871. The 31st of December, which is New Year's Eve, or also St. Sylvester Night, Pope Sylvester played a major role in Christianizing Emperor Constantine. The 8th day is New Year's Day, and also the Feast of Circumcision, because, as stated in the Bible, Christ was circumcised on the 8th day after birth. The 5th of January is the 12th night, with its various traditions, including the play that Shakespeare wrote and the Lord of Misrule, which I'll discuss a little later. It's also, in some traditions, the day when Christmas decorations are removed. The following day, the 6th of January, is Epiphany, which celebrates the visit of the 3 wise men, or the Magi. A further traditional date is the 2nd of February, also known as Candlemas, which is 40 days after Christmas. This is traditionally the day that Jesus was presented at the temple. Candles are blessed for use in churches throughout the coming year on that day. And now, the intriguing question. When was the first modern Christmas celebration? As I said before, Christmas was not celebrated in the early church, only commemorated by vigils and a midnight mass. The first Christmas celebration was introduced by St. Francis of Assisi in the year 1223, following a visit of his to Palestine. He returned and staged a nativity scene in a cave in the town of Greccio of Italy. He set up a real manger in the cave with an ox and a donkey to show the poverty and simplicity of Jesus' birth. This celebration became so popular that it spread throughout Europe with gift giving. This is the sanctuary that was built over the cave in the year 1228 and is known as the Franciscan Bethlehem, and the chapel of the First Nativity set in the original cave that St. Francis used. A 1295 painting by Giotto set in the church commemorates this first Christmas celebration. The oldest nativity sculpture, inspired by St. Francis of Assisi, was created by Arnulfo da Cambio in 1291 and is situated in the Santa Maria Maggiore Church in Rome. The nativity scene created by St. Francis of Assisi sparked a major tradition of what is known as presepi in Italy. Presepi are everywhere, in both private and public spaces. Most families have their own presepi at home, while churches and public spaces display larger and more elaborate ones. There are both static and live nativity scenes during the Christmas period. But elaborate nativity scenes have also spread to many other parts of the world. We will look at some of these. The first nativity scene can be found in the Catacomb of Marcus in Rome and dates to the year 380 AD. Here are some images of the many presepi found everywhere in all the towns of Italy. But the most impressive ones can be found in Naples, along the Via San Gregorio Armeno, which is known as Christmas Alley. The world's largest hand-carved wood nativity scene can be found in Santa Cristina Valgardina in Italy. The nativity scene with the world's largest individual figures can be found in Alicante in Spain. One of the largest nativity scenes in South America is on the Plaza de Armas in Cusco in Peru. Another large display in the private garden of a family in Santa Lucia in Brazil. largest movable wooden nativity is found in Slovakia and has 300 individual figures. The Krysa mechanical scene in the Czech Republic is the largest folk mechanical nativity in the world. It took 60 years to build and has 1,398 human and animal figures. Another mechanical nativity scene in the Czech Republic is a Trevěčovice display with 2,000 carved parts, including 375 human and animal figures. The island of Malta created a large nativity scene in Rome, which is a replica of the nativity in their capital city, Valletta, as explained in this TV interview.
Malta visits Rome in this unique nativity scene. St. Andrew's Band Club exhibits the Malta Fil Presepiu crib scene at St. Paul outside the walls, combining Malta's identity with the birth of Jesus Christ. This Maltese exhibit highlights the artistic nativity scene that shows Malta's capital city, Valletta, a city built for gentlemen by gentlemen. It demonstrates how the living, working, and administrative capital of the island celebrated Jesus.
The main nativity scene is a representation of a painting that is situated in our village. We have an altar that represents its nativity, and effectively the nativity scene is a true copy of the picture that was painted by a renowned Italian painter, Giuseppe Calì.
As an introduction to the next section, I need to explain what medieval mystery plays were. They were religious dramas based on biblical stories and were performed by craft guilds and often presented in a sequence called a cycle. They dramatized major events from the Bible, ranging from creation and Noah's Ark to the Last Judgment. They were usually performed on mobile stages called pageant wagons that traveled through different towns. They combined serious religious themes with popular entertainment, humor, and even satirical elements. Now let's look at one of our most endearing Christmas symbols and traditions, namely Christmas trees. Here is a picture of a Christmas tree in our shopping mall here in Hermanus, as well as a tree in the home of my sister-in-law. Tree worship was common among the pagan Europeans and continued into Christian times. The tree of paradise, decorated with apples, represented the Garden of Eden and the story of Adam and Eve in the medieval mystery plays, which I discussed in a previous slide and performed on the 24th of December. Based on this traditional use of trees, the first Christmas trees were introduced in the Baltic states and Germany during the Renaissance, with more decorations like stars, bells, angels, etc. This was called a Christbaum. Martin Luther added candles to the trees. He apparently got the idea after seeing the stars one evening and thought that the candles could symbolize the stars. He was also the first to bring Christmas trees indoors. The first Christmas tree on record to be placed inside a church was in the Cathedral of Strasbourg in the year 1539. Now let's consider some of the decorations on Christmas trees. The first written records of decorated Christmas trees come from Tallinn in Estonia in 1441 and Riga in Latvia in 1510. The local merchants' guild, or the so-called Brotherhood of Blackheads, decorated a tree with artificial roses, danced around it in the marketplace, and then set the trees on fire. The rose was considered a symbol for the Virgin Mary. Early decorations again were apples, white candy canes, and pastries in the shapes of stars, hearts, and flowers. In 1570, the Bremen Guild Chronicle reports that a small tree decorated with apples, nuts, dates, pretzels, and paper flowers was erected in the guild hall. Stars with multiple points, known as Moravian stars, used as decorations, were first created in a Moravian boys' boarding school in Nitzki in Germany in the mid-1800s as part of a lesson in geometry. The stars normally had 26 points, but there are also versions with 20, 32, 50, 62, and even 110 points. The first commercial star was sold in 1897 by a schoolboy at Nitsky who founded the Herrnhut Star Factory. The Christingle is another decoration that has a Moravian connection. It originated in a Moravian church service for children in Germany in 1747 by the pastor John de Watteville. It consists of an orange which represents the world, a candle which represents the light of God, a red ribbon around the orange representing the blood of Jesus, 4 sticks for north, south, east and west, and nuts, sweets or dried fruit representing the fruit of the earth. The Christingle was brought to England in the 1960s by the Children's Society. The holly, ivy and mistletoe were used in pre-Christian times to celebrate the winter solstice festival, to ward off evil spirits and to celebrate new growth. The Christian meanings of these decorations are the holly representing the crown of thorns that Jesus had to wear, and the berries the drops of blood. An ivy needs to cling to something to support itself. Thus, we need to cling to God for support. The use of the mistletoe as a decoration dates back to the time of the Druids. Kissing under the mistletoe is a Christmas tradition that dates to the Georgian period in the 1720s. The practice is linked to the Roman festival of Saturnalia, which was a time of celebration and truce, with enemies making peace under the mistletoe. The earliest recorded instance of a song mentioning kissing under the mistletoe is in the comic opera 2 to 1, which was first performed in June 1784 at the Haymarket Theatre in London. The mistletoe also appears in the first published version of A Christmas Carol in 1843. Although the mistletoe was banned in many churches due to the connection to the Druids, the York Minster Church held a special mistletoe service which gave wrongdoers in the city an opportunity to seek forgiveness. Another popular decoration at Christmas is the gingerbread. The first gingerbread was brought to Europe by an Armenian monk in the year 992. Perniki Torunski had been present in Poland since the 1300s. Queen Elizabeth I had gingerbread likenesses made of her guests. The first account of gingerbread, fruit and nuts used as decoration on Christmas trees was in 1805 in Strasbourg. Prince Albert introduced gingerbread figures on Christmas trees in Britain. Stories such as Hansel and Gretel and the Gingerbread Man that contained gingerbread houses popularized these decorations. The first printed version of The Gingerbread Man was published in the USA in 1875 in the St. Nicholas magazine. Another interesting Christmas decoration is the Nutcracker doll. The first distinctive wooden Nutcracker dolls were carved in the Erzgebirge or Ore Mountains in Germany after mining declined there in the 17th century. They were initially everyday tools for cracking nuts and also served as symbols of good luck to ward off bad spirits. They evolved into kings, soldiers, and policemen and were sold at Christmas markets. US soldiers brought these nutcrackers home after World War II, which popularized them in the USA. The Nutcracker and the Mouse King is a literary fairy tale by the Prussian author E.T.A. Hoffmann, in which a young girl's favorite Christmas toy, the Nutcracker, comes alive and after defeating the evil Mouse King in battle, whisks her away to a magical kingdom populated by dolls. The 1892 Nutcracker Ballet of Tchaikovsky cemented the figure's connection to Christmas. Christmas Eve performances of the Nutcracker Suite is almost standard fare in many parts of the world and has been produced annually in San Francisco since 1944. Here are some examples of the famous Nutcracker dolls. Now let us look at some iconic Christmas trees. The largest Christmas tree in the world is not a live tree, but a 750-meter tall light display projected onto a mountain in Gubbio in Italy. The world's largest live Christmas tree can be found at Germany's largest Christmas market, which is in Dortmund. The market has 300 stalls. The tree is 46 meters tall, consists of 1,700 individual spruce trees that are tied to a frame. It weighs 40,000 kilograms. Historically, it had 48,000 lights, but has been upgraded to 138,000 LED lights. The tallest artificial Christmas tree was built in Colombo in Sri Lanka in the year 2016. It was 72 meters tall and was a steel and wire frame made from scrap metal and wood. It had 1 million pine cones, and the cones were painted gold, green, red, and silver. It also had 600,000 LED bulbs with a 6-meter star on the top, and a few other iconic Christmas trees, like this beautiful one in Krakow in Poland, or the famous Rockefeller Center in New York. Then the floating Christmas tree in Rio de Janeiro, traditionally located in the Rodrigo de Freitas Lagoon, which will now be moved to the Botafogo Bay, offering views of Sugarloaf Mountain and Christ the Redeemer statue. And of course, the Christmas tree in Trafalgar Square. Since 1947, Oslo, Norway, has presented London with this special gift, an enormous Christmas tree that stands at the center of Trafalgar Square. The tree serves as a token of gratitude to Britain for its assistance to Norway during World War II. There are countless other beautiful and iconic Christmas trees around the world, just too many to mention here. What is Christmas without Santa Claus, particularly in the Western world? And I will now trace the history of this important symbolic figure. Santa Claus is associated with Saint Nicholas, a priest known for his kindness and secret gift-giving. He was born into a wealthy family, but used his inheritance later to help poor people. He lived from 270 to 343 AD and was born in a town called Patara, currently in Turkey, but later became the bishop of Myra. There are many legends of the miracles attributed to him and the help that he gave people who are in trouble. For instance, he saved 3 young girls from being forcibly married. He gave each a gold coin as a dowry so that they could escape this forced marriage. He went on a pilgrimage to Palestine, and on the way the ship was caught in a storm, but he rose up and calmed the waves. Because of all these deeds, he became the patron saint of children, of travelers, of merchants, and of sailors, and they were the ones who spread his fame. He also became the patron saint of Russia, Greece, and many other regions and cities. He was in fact the most popular saint in the Middle Ages, and therefore his name became linked to Christmas. This is the church of St. Nicholas that was built in Myra after his death. He was buried in a sarcophagus in a grotto in the basement of the church. Sometime later, it was noticed that a clear liquid, which was called manna, exuded from the tomb. The manna was considered a holy liquid. It was collected in vials and was used to bless and cure people. In the year 1087, when the Seljuk Turks invaded Asia Minor, merchants from Bari in Italy were concerned that the church and sarcophagus in Myra may be damaged or destroyed. They embarked upon a mission to remove the major bones from the sarcophagus in Myra and took them back to Bari. Sailors from Venice who were concerned that the remains of their patron saint may be damaged also embarked upon a mission and retrieved the remainder of the bones and returned them to Venice. This is the Basilica of San Nicola in Bari that was built later to inter the bones of St. Nicholas that were retrieved from Myra. This is an image of the nave and the reliquary. The sarcophagus with the bones was once again placed in a grotto below the main altar. And a few years later, it was once again noticed that a clear liquid exuded from the sarcophagus. To this day, this manna of St. Nicholas is collected annually on the 9th of May during a formal extraction ceremony. The extraction is performed by the rector of the basilica in the presence of various religious and civil authorities. Here is a short video of the most recent extraction ceremony.
L'emozione più grande è stata quando padre Lorenzo Lorusso si è rialzato dal sepolcro con in mano l'ampolla piena del prezioso liquido, acqua profumata assolutamente pura che trasuda inspiegabilmente dalle ossa di San Nicola. Il prodigio della Sacra Manna, il rito del 9 maggio che chiude i festeggiamenti dedicati al patrono di Bari, si è ripetuto anche quest'anno. Un evento di grande spiritualità e fede che ha riempito come non mai la basilica di fedeli e pellegrini, cattolici e ortodossi, devoti al vescovo di Mira.
The fame of St. Nicholas throughout Europe was well established. However, linking his name to Santa Claus took a surprising turn. A Dutch author called Jan Schenkman wrote a book which was published in 1845 called St. Nicolaas en zijn knecht, meaning St. Nicholas and his servant. In his book, Schenkman directly linked St. Nicholas to Christmas and called it the Sinterklaas feast. Surprisingly, in the Dutch tradition, St. Nicholas and his assistant came from Spain. That is because Spain ruled the Netherlands at one stage. They both checked the behavior of the inhabitants of a house through the chimney, but delivered gifts for good behavior, but may even transport naughty children to Spain. St. Nicholas' servant was called Zwarte Piet or Black Peter. Here is a picture of Zwarte Piet transporting naughty children in his bag. New Amsterdam, which later became New York, was first settled by the Dutch, who brought the Sinterklaas tradition to America, where the Dutch Sinterklaas inevitably became Santa Claus. Drawing on these Dutch traditions, an anonymous illustrated poem was published in 1821 called Old Santa Claus with Much Delight. This is the first record of an illustration of Santa Claus with a sleigh and a reindeer, as well as an image of Santa Claus himself. But the most significant impact on the creation of the Santa Claus tradition, including the sleigh and the reindeer with their names, came from a poem written by Clement Clarke Moore in 1823 called "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, then the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys was flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly, that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprung to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
The first definitive image of Santa Claus was published in Harper's Magazine on the 3rd of January 1863, drawn by Thomas Nast during the American Civil War. However, it was finally Coca-Cola who played a pivotal role in promoting the modern image of Santa Claus. In 1931, they commissioned Haddon Hubbard Sonny Sundblom, an American artist of Finnish and Swedish descent. He standardized the image for Coca-Cola in their advertisements. He used his own face for the first images, and he established the rosy cheeks, the white beard, and a red suit. Here is an image of his very first Coca-Cola Santa Claus, as well as some subsequent illustrations. Now let us look at some other Father Christmas figures in the world. In Lapland of Finland, he is called Joulupukki, which is Yule goat, which stems from Finnish and Scandinavian pagan traditions. Yule goats were frightening masked figures, often portrayed by men in goat hides, who went door to door after Christmas, demanding food and leftover drink. In the 19th century, this tradition blended with the legend of the charitable Saint Nicholas and was transformed into a benevolent gift-giving figure. The modern version was created by the radio host Markus Rautio in the 1920s. In a pivotal broadcast in 1927, Markus Rautio announced that Joulupukki lives in Lapland. The widespread Coca-Cola images of Santa Claus, created by the Finnish-American artist Haddon Sundblom, was very influential in establishing Joulupukki's modern appearance, including the red robes, white beard, and general jolly demeanor. He lives in a town on the Arctic Circle and has elves and reindeer as helpers. It is also the official Santa Claus post office. There are some distinctive differences between Santa Claus and Joulupukki. Joulupukki stays on the ground and does not fly through the air, and generally knocks on doors and asks, "Are there any well-behaved children here?" Being in Finland, a Christmas celebration always has to end with a sauna. Iceland has a very different and distinctive Christmas tradition. They have an entire family of gift givers. This tradition was created by the Icelandic poet in 1932. They have 13 Yule lads, plus their mum, a father, and the Yule cat. The mother Grilla is a scary troll mum and detects naughty children. The Yule cat devours anyone without new clothes at Christmas. In their tradition, a shoe is placed in the window on the night of the 12th of December and kept there for 13 days until Christmas Day. Every night, a different Yule lad deposits a small gift or sweet in the shoe. Each Yule lad has a different name, and some of them are very interesting, like spoon licker, pot licker, bowl licker, door slammer, skier gobbler, skier being their yogurt, doorway sniffer, and candle stealer. Each one has a distinctive image, and here are a few examples: spoon licker, pot licker, skier gobbler, and door sniffer. In November, an illuminated sculpture of the fearsome Yule cat appears on a city square in Reykjavik. Although it was said that the monstrous cat would devour anyone in Iceland without new clothes at Christmas, it really was a 19th century folk tale, not intended to scare kids, but to motivate farm workers to finish processing the autumn wool before the holiday season. Although Saint Nicholas was Greek and is the patron saint of that country, in Greece, Agios Vasilis, or Saint Basil, brings the gifts. Gifts are distributed on New Year's Day. Vasilopita is a traditional Greek New Year's Day bread or cake with a hidden coin or trinket. The Vasilopita legend honors Saint Basil, who baked the pita with hidden coins in order to return the valuables to the residents of the city following a siege. It is served right after midnight on New Year's Eve or on New Year's Day to celebrate the life of Saint Basil, whose feast day is January the 1st. Christmas father in Russia is Ded Moroz, which means Old Man Frost, and in Gaelic in Scotland, Bodach na Nollaig, the Old Man of Christmas. For some reason in many traditions, there always is a frightening figure that scares or even devours children, something which I personally find quite strange. I mentioned Zwarte Piet or Black Peter in the Dutch tradition earlier. Krampus is a horned folkloric figure from the central and eastern Alpine regions who punishes naughty children on the night before St. Nicholas Day on the 5th of December. He serves as a dark companion to St. Nicholas. He typically beats children with birch branches, frightens them, and sometimes carries them away in a sack or basket. It is interesting to note that in the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" by Clement Moore, there is no mention of naughty children or scaring them, and ends with the words, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." During the discussion on the proclamation of the 12 days of Christmas, I mentioned the tradition of the Lords of Misrule. Although the 12 days of Christmas were meant to be part of the official church calendar, this period assumed a completely different character in medieval Britain and became a time of revelry and wassailing. It was rooted in the Roman Saturnalia, where masters served slaves during the medieval Feast of Fools. A person from the lower classes was chosen to organize and rule the celebrations. This ruler wore a paper crown and motley coat. There was raucous entertainment, drunkenness, wild partying, feasts, plays, processions, symbolic marriages, and mock justice using stocks and pillories. This practice declined due to Puritan opposition and was legally banned in 1640. The result was that Christmas was hardly ever celebrated in Britain until the Victorian period, when Prince Albert played a major role in re-establishing Christmas traditions in Britain. A much-loved tradition was sending Christmas cards to family and friends. The first known Christmas card was sent by Michael Meyer to King James of England in 1611. Meyer was a German physician and learned alchemist, epigrammist, and amateur composer. He sent a handmade card with Rosicrucian imagery. This is the very first Christmas card with the Rosicrucian imagery. It is probably not very festive in today's terms, but it's the thought that counts. The first commercial Christmas card was commissioned by Sir Henry Cole and designed by John Calcott Horsley in London in 1843. The firm Prang and Meyer began producing Christmas cards in London in 1873 and started selling them in the USA in 1874. Louis Prang, who was the owner of the company, was known as the father of the American Christmas card. By 1890, they sold 5 million cards per annum. The famous Hallmark cards appeared in 1910, created by Joyce Hall. He grew the company from a small mail-order business to the most modern greeting card industry in the world. World War I and World War II gave a big boost to the use of Christmas cards because of the absence of husbands and sons. After the introduction of Christmas cards in Britain and the publication of the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," the practice arose amongst children to send letters to Santa Claus. These letters were initially considered unmailable, but it grew to such an extent during the American Civil War that the United States Postal Service decided to introduce Operation Santa in 1912. The Postmaster General authorized the creation of Santa's first mailroom with an official address, namely 123 Elf Road, North Pole. One condition was that a return address had to be included on the envelope. Staff members and volunteers were now authorized to open letters to Santa and to respond to the children's letters. either in general terms or to fulfill the request in their own discretion. Each reply is marked with a North Pole stamp. The system was digitized in 2020, enabling anybody in the country, either individuals or companies, to adopt letters and to respond to the requests either in general terms or in kind. Similar arrangements have been introduced in Lapland, France, Britain, Germany, and other countries. In Britain, the first letter to Santa Claus was from a guild in Lincolnshire in 1895. Reindeer Land was introduced in 1963. Christmas carols constitute a very large part of the Christmas tradition and are sung in homes, in churches, in concerts, and even in mass gatherings in stadiums and public places.
Carols are an instantly recognizable part of the Christmas season. We hear them on the radio and in movies, and we gather in large groups to sing them. The Christmas caroling tradition that we know in the West largely started around 1300 years after Christ. In the 17th century, the Protestants of England actually banned Christmas entirely, as well as the singing of all Christmas carols, and Christmas, as well as every other ancient Christian festival, almost disappeared from the Christian calendar of the English-speaking world. While this ban was only a few years long, it resulted in a loss of understanding and love of Christmas that went on for a couple of centuries in England. It wasn't until the Victorian age and Charles Dickens and Prince Albert that Christmas was rediscovered and brought back into popular society. Since the return of Christmas to the English-speaking world, carols and caroling have continued as a much-loved tradition. Caroling does exist in Orthodox countries, especially places like Bulgaria, Ukraine, and Romania, which has thousands of carols, many of which are so old that their origins have been forgotten. Now, you could say that the first Christmas carol ever sung is recorded in the scriptures, and it is sung by the angels as they appear to the shepherds at night. But what is the first Christmas song, the first song of the Christian church specifically for Christmas Day? There are records to suggest that the first Christmas song was called the Angels' Hymn, and it was composed by Saint Telesphorus of Rome in the 2nd century. Unfortunately, this song, both its lyrics and its music, have long been forgotten, and so it isn't for another couple of hundred years and into the 4th century that we have the oldest preserved Christmas carol. The original tune from this carol has long been lost, but the lyrics have been preserved, and while they don't quite fit what we would now consider a carol, it is the oldest Christmas song that we have in the Christian church. Now bear in mind, most of the carols that we know and love in the Western world are only 200 to 300 years old. Some exceptions date back around 700 to 800 years. The one we are presenting today dates back almost 1,700 years.
Here is a plain chant version of the original carol sung in Latin. The Friendly Beasts is the oldest carol still sung today. It's about a donkey, a cow, a sheep, a camel, and a dove. It originated in 12th century France. The melody is from the Latin song Orientis Partibus, but the modernized words were written by Robert Davies in the 1920s. course, there's an entire inventory of beautiful and well-known carols. I compiled a list of some of the best-known carols and was surprised to see how old some of them are, dating back to the 1300s. And here is a second list of carols. There is likewise a vast collection of classical music celebrating Christmas. This includes the music of very famous composers such as Bach, Handel, Haydn, Schubert, Liszt, Tchaikovsky, and many others. Again, there's an almost endless list of works of art by famous painters and sculptors and many others centering around the birth of Christ. I mention here just a few works. The Nativity Scenes by Giotto and Sandro Botticelli, as well as Albrecht Dürer. Also, the Nativity with St. Francis and St. Lawrence by Caravaggio, the various snow scenes by Monet, and the Hunters in the Snow by Peter Bruegel. The list is simply endless and stretches over many centuries with artists from many, many different countries. Another fascinating part of Christmas celebrations are the small-town Christmas festivals. Some of these towns are completely transformed during the Christmas period, with many decorations and street activities. Leavenworth in the state of Washington in the United States is a Bavarian-style village that transforms into a festive Christmas destination with Christmas decorations, lights, and activities like sleigh rides and carolers. Attractions include visiting the gingerbread factory and enjoying German food. The town of Santa Claus in Indiana has year-round attractions, including Santa's Candy Castle, the Santa Claus Museum and Village, various themed stores, and festive events and activities. Of course, during the Christmas season, there are many additional activities, such as Santa Claus's Land of Lights and a candlelight evening. Colmar in France is one of the emblematic towns of the beautiful Alsace area that radiates a magical atmosphere during the festive season. Brugge or Bruges in Belgium is likewise transformed into a magical winter wonderland with its Winter Glow Festival, featuring 2 charming Christmas markets, a large ice skating rink, and a light trail throughout the decorated city. Which leads us to another important aspect of Christmas tradition, namely Christmas markets. The oldest Christmas market in the world is a Stritzelmarkt in Dresden in Germany that dates from the year 1434. It was originally a one-day market only to sell meat after the Advent fast, which I referred to earlier. Stritzel comes from the word Stritzel, also known as Stollen. Stollen is a traditional German Christmas fruit bread made with rich butter, dried and candied fruits, and marzipan. Authentic Dresdner Christstollen is a protected designation and requires the seal of Augustus II, the Elector of Saxony and the King of Poland, and can only be made by authorized bakers. The market attracts 3 million visitors annually with 240 stalls. It also has the largest Christmas pyramid. The world's largest Christmas market is the Christkindlmarkt am Rathausplatz in Vienna and attracts 3 million visitors annually. In addition, Vienna has over 20 official Christmas markets, each with its own unique character. Strasbourg in France is called the capital of Christmas because of its historic and large-scale Christmas celebrations. It has the oldest Christmas market in France, dating back to 1570, and the 30-meter Christmas tree in the city center is the tallest in Europe. The entire city is transformed during the holiday season, with sparkling lights, festive decorations, and hundreds of stalls. One of my personal favorites is the Christkindlmarkt of Nuremberg, which I and my wife have visited on various occasions, as well as the smaller one at Rothenburg ob der Tauber. Many cities around the world organize Christmas parades. Querétaro City in Mexico holds a biblical float parade, the Desfile de Carro Bíblicos, on Christmas Eve that dates back to 1828. The oldest Santa Claus parade is in Toronto and dates from the year 1905. Porto in Portugal has a Santa Claus parade which holds the record for the largest number of participants, with 14,963 people in 2010. In Vancouver, the Santa Claus Parade is one of the largest with 65 floats and bands. A special train circulates throughout the parade, collecting food and gifts. Kerala in India holds the record for the most Santa Clauses that participated in the parade, namely 18,112. This was achieved on the 27th of December in 2014 during the Buon Natale festival. The largest Christmas show in Europe is the Intertuin Duiven store in Arnhem in Holland. The entire store is transformed with thousands of Christmas decorations, lights and festive displays.